Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ben, this is Books with Bengus Khan, and today I'm coming to you with my February reading wrap-up, and it was a spectacular month of reading that I can't wait to gush about here. And it's a cool variety of books, and some planned, some unplanned, and I'll just let my reading mood take me where it was going to this month, and I had a great time. And I started with continuing the Lord of the Rings. I talked about going through Fellowship the previous month and having a great time with that, and I read just book 3 of Lord of the Rings, part 3, the first half of the Two Towers, and this was a magical time. I want to just chat about some spoiler things that I loved from this book, so if you have not read Two Towers, seen the movie, or want to keep differences about the book, you can skip to the next part in the timestamps. But I absolutely loved starting with Merry and Pippin getting captured by the orcs and the Uruk-hai, getting a little insight into their conflicts, and Isengard and Mordor, and just that was so great hearing the orcs kind of speaking, and the tension of that with being with Merry and Pippin and trying to figure out a way to escape was so great, intercut with scenes of Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli trying to track them down. I think the film did a great job with the whole adaptation of this part of the Two Towers, and so I just loved seeing it a little bit in expanded view here. And then when we go into Fangorn Forest and meet Treebeard, this was such an extended, lengthy sequence that we got to spend time with Treebeard here in the books, and they did it. I loved the Ents in the film, but man, did we just luxuriate in the forest with Treebeard and learning some lore and hearing songs and about the Entwives, and we met a different Ent that I'd not known from the films, and just had a great time with this younger Ent as well, and then the Entmoot, and man, all of this was just riveting to me. I love taking my sweet time and being immersed in Middle-earth here, and then, man, Helm's Deep, I loved having the visuals of it from the films because I felt that helped me be even more immersed. It was so fascinating seeing the adaptation changes and differences. I loved the way it played out in the books, I just meeting Gandalf the White, and eventually going back to Isengard and stranding Saruman there. It was fascinating because I didn't know how that was going to play out, and they left him there, which was new. I'm curious what he's going to get up to later, but man, that was a great time. Loved Book 3 of Lord of the Rings, first half of the Two Towers, and I'll try to get back and continue this journey with Frodo and Sam and Gollum's part of the story, maybe sometime soon. Next read was a big hit for me, and that was The Curse of Chalion by Lois McMaster Bujold. If you want a deep dive into the book, you can head over to iSamwise's channel, where we had a deep dive buddy read book chat on this one, and this is so fascinating for me because I am a Lois McMaster Bujold mega fan. I have read all 20 stories in the Vorkoskin sci-fi saga. I was so curious what it was going to be like coming to her fantasy, and it was fascinating because it was so different in every way. The style felt completely different. It was, if I had not known, I would not have guessed it was the same author as who wrote Vorkoskin, and it's so impressive that she's able to morph her style and voice to be something that feels more classically medieval style epic fantasy. And this is a classic and kind of modern fantasy standalones, and so if you want a just satisfying story, kind of like Guy Gavriel Kay's historical fantasy standalones, where you can go on the full arc of the story and not feel shortchanged in just one novel-sized volume, and this is going to deliver the goods. And just, it's so deep in its character work. You're starting off with this broken former soldier, and you're given some hints about what might be going on in his past that brought him to this place where he has nothing. He's just stumbling through the countryside with the clothes on his back, and where this goes, and how he can recover his identity in life, and find his place again back at a castle where he used to have a position when he was younger. The way it unfolded was always unpredictable. Like you had no clue where this was going because there's not a real inciting incident at the start. So it's a very non-traditional epic fantasy in that sense, where there's no prologue. The inciting incident, if there even is a kind of inciting incident, happens maybe, like almost halfway through the book, where you're like, oh, wow, this is going to be the source of the major conflict and where the rest of the plot's going to revolve around. But in the beginning, you're getting more slice of life following Kazaril, who's a really just awesome, easy to root for protagonist, is a very noble type of character, who's been really kicked down in the mud for the last while, and this is his journey to find his place again and what he can contribute to this kind of society, which is similar to medieval Spain. I know Bujold was inspired by the time of Ferdinand and Isabella, I believe. They had these two different kingdoms, Castile and Aragon, and with their marriage they were going to be kind of uniting things, and I know she was inspired by certain historical figures and events around this time period in Spain. So it's a very kind of medieval Spain-like setting, and I was absorbed by this. It felt like you had Bujold's just same from Vorkosigan, that sense of this nuanced internal character work, where she wouldn't go overboard with the reflections and internal monologuing, but where we did get it, it was just so powerful. And then really cool fantasy elements. I mean, she went big and bold with the religious aspects here, and it's from the series The World of the Five Gods, and the religion takes a center stage in the society in a way that it often doesn't in fantasy worlds, and the gods are pretty active, and so it makes sense that people would be kind of revolving their lives around them and into different orders for the different gods, and there's constant festivals and ceremonies and the rituals, and so it's a very immersive style of world building. And then once the kind of heart of this conflict hits in the middle, man, it's just off to the races with intense things going on, and so yeah, you have to just go into this knowing it's going to be a slow build for a while. But her slice of life sections at the beginning I found just so absorbing as we're following Kazaril's character journey. So just a couple different types of reading experiences in here, and it's not that long, so it's accomplishing a lot, and I can't wait to continue with the rest of these fantasy books in this world coming up soon. This next read came out of nowhere to just absolutely blow me away. It was a stunner, and that is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. I was just walking around Barnes & Noble one day, browsing, and saw this lying out on a table in a nice big stack of them, and I was like, you know what, I've seen this being gushed about by a lot of people in the booktube community. I hadn't been in any rush to track this down, knowing that it was on the heavier, bleaker side of sci-fi fantasy, being more of a literary work, but I saw it there and felt like, you know what, this is a beautiful edition, I love this cover, and I'll give it a go. And man, do I not regret that choice, because this is one of the more impactful reads of my life. It just made such great use of every single page. It's less than 200 pages in this paperback. It did not take too long to go through it, but it felt like such a deep, moving experience as we follow this character who has no history, no sense of normal socialization. We're just with this kind of teenage girl character in this bunker with a bunch of other older female prisoners, and she doesn't ever remember being outside of this prison bunker, and she has basically no cultural education, no cultural history. She's kind of isolated from these older women, and so she is this blank slate almost of a character who is just so fascinating and involving to follow her inner journey. And it's just such a difference compared to being with a lot of more other modern characters who have such this psychological awareness of, you know, us in the 2020s Western civilization. And I'm kind of getting tired of being inside the minds of a lot of those characters. And it was just so refreshing to be with someone who's trying to just figure out their place in life, having so little to go on. And this character was just so kind of humane in the way they interacted with other characters and over the course of the novel. And it felt uplifting in a lot of ways. And it's not a kind of real like grimdark book where terrible atrocities are going to be happening. It's not a high action-packed thriller. It's more like a meditation. There's something about her discovery of new things and ideas that was just so life-affirming to me and touching, that just makes this so memorable. And I feel like I'm gonna want to return to this again and again, and also try to unpack some of its secrets and symbolism and meaning that I'm sure is buried in there. It's just I feel like it's working on a lot of levels, but on the very basic level of what's happening was engrossing, and to see what was, how things were going to play out, and it just never took any kind of predictable path, and felt cliche, and just all the interactions felt so organic and meaningful. But I think this book is going to be one of these from the last 50 years or so that is going to be one of the few books that will stand the test of time. If people are still around and reading hundreds of years from now, I think this is going to be looked back on as one of the classics from this era of literature. I think it is something I would send out in a probe to be a time capsule for human civilization. It just has so much to teach us, I think, and just as a reading experience felt so fresh and unique. Man, if you have not read this, couldn't recommend it enough when you're in the mood for something that is more of a philosophical meditation. It's not that it's overly philosophical, but it's just not going to be something that is an entertaining, escapist kind of read. And you just want to be in that more thoughtful literary mood when you pick that up. And I was ready for that, I think, because I've been just so enmeshed in the more kind of entertaining side of sci-fi fantasy for so long that this was kind of brought me back to when I used to read more literary books. And this is just so quick-hitting and hard-hitting. So it's easy to get into and get through. Grab this when you're ready for it. And after that emotional heaviness of Who Have Never Known Men, I wanted a change of pace and just something lighter. So I turned to a new release, came out by a favorite author, Matt Dinniman, and that is Operation Bounce House, his new standalone sci-fi book. And this did the trick. This is not going to be surviving as a classic of human literature, I don't think, but it was a great time, kind of 4-star, solid, great time that accomplished everything I was hoping it would. As far as being an exciting adventure that was engaging me and providing humor that I knew Dinniman with his sensibility was going to make me laugh, and he did. And so it was doing that while still in this absurd situation that he set up, able to keep the emotional stakes real and grounded, which is his superpower with Dungeon Crawler Carl and this book, because it really is an absurd situation, but one that has a lot of social commentary for our modern times and our age of being technologically connected and on the net, and all of the anonymous interactions we have, whether it's gaming or commenting on forums, that can be damaging, I think, to our souls to be in our isolated technological shells. And we are spending time here on this colony planet where it's basically an agricultural society, and there's not too many people around where they live, and it's a small community, and everyone knows each other, and seeing how they try to survive and provide just social support to each other, whether it's how they rely on each other for farming or forming garage bands, and just having these in-person analog experiences. I think Dinniman is really just saying something kind of profound in this book about the importance of keeping those types of moments in our lives and types of real human connections, and not letting us succumb to just the technological overload that is possible to kind of lose yourself in. And so yeah, this was a fun time with some depth, and if you want it was some cool sci-fi action, but the action is not at the heart of this book, although there is a really cool climactic sequence, and there's bursts of really intense action, but that's not what this book is all about. It's definitely more of a character journey along with this kind of thematic exploration. It's a story of this ragtag bunch of young people, and with an AI bot helper that are trying to survive this really intense situation, being attacked by people on Earth who feel like they're playing a video game and have dehumanized these farmers on this colony planet through lots of propaganda and lies, and how it all plays out, I thought was really cool, and I just really had a good time with this one. So solid sci-fi standalone there. Doing a bunch of standalones is good because I am in the midst of a sprawling epic fantasy series right now, and I just finished the book 1 of the Last King of Osten-Ard kind of sequel series that Tad Williams has been writing over the last bunch of years, coming back to the world of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. And man, the Witchwood Crown is an incredible series reset. I mean, this is a chunky book 1, and it is taking its sweet, sweet time putting all of these new pieces in place for this new conflict that has arisen. It's taking place around 30 years or so after the end of To Green Angel Tower, and the way he picked up with certain characters, they felt so believably still themselves, but so organically aging a few decades, and introducing some new characters, and you're wondering, how are they playing into things, and we're slowly dropping around to all different parts of the map, and then we're rotating around, and it's setting up this world-spanning conflict where there's this huge amount of dread and tension that, man, we missed out on these 30 years that passed where not much of conflict seemed to happen, and all that time between where cozy stuff was happening. I would have loved to explore that time a little bit. Man, so he drops us right back in to the time of dread, and this is fantastic. I feel like just building on everything he'd set up and setting off on this new epic conflict that I'm feeling so connected to, and on the edge of my seat now with where this is heading. Just incredible work here, and it feels like Williams he took around like a 30-year in-world break from writing this series, which is so fascinating that he went and wrote other things and aged and had all these experiences in adulthood, and it's coming back to this, and it feels like that where there's different emotional notes being plucked, and some more wisdom maybe that is being imparted through some of these characters that's hard earned over the course of Williams' own life. And I feel like the writing's really elegant and tight, and even though it's sprawling and deliberately paced, I feel like just every chapter, every scene is essential to what he's building here. And there's some just wonderful new characters, and this book was released right around the time of Joe Abercrombie's Age of Madness trilogy as well, and there's definitely some parallels in a character, which was great to see of two authors doing something similar around the same time, whether it's Orso from that series and Morgan in here, and there's a sensibility of this being a little bit more modern in some of the character writing than back in the 80s when he was writing Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. But it still has that older feel because the prose is so rich. And man, it's just so easy for me to be immersed here. Everything feels organic to these characters and the setting and the story. The language is so transportive. And man, Williams is just a master when it comes to prose. So I am so deeply invested in this. I can't wait to continue with Empire of Grass. I'm part of this big buddy read, and on my channel, if you can go back and watch the chat that we're having about this with Philip Chase and Andy Smith and Nick Hill from Shelf Esteem, where we'll do deep dive into everything going on here. If you want to check that out, we'll do non-spoilers first. Yeah, so that was a really packed February. Can't believe how much I ended up reading. And coming up, I will be continuing with the World of the Five Gods. Man, there's some great covers here. Here's Paladin of Souls, and I'll be doing that buddy read with I Samwise again. I have the Mylar wrapping on here from a used bookstore, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but this is just a stunning cover painting. And continuing with the Osten-Ard saga with Empire of Grass with another absolutely incredible cover, and by Michael Whalen. And so yeah, that this one is going to continue the tale, and I can't wait. So that's the couple that I know I'll probably be reading in March. And yeah, got to figure out a book of the month now. Man, that is going to be a challenge because there were some great ones. I mean, Witchwood Crown, incredible book 1. Curse of Chalion, a great standalone. But I'm going to have lots of time to build up with Last King of Ostenard. But this, I gotta celebrate I Who Have Never Known Men as my book of the month. I think one of the reads of my life, honestly. Just incredible, and it's gonna be sitting with me for a while. And I know I'm gonna be drawn back to reread it some more. So that was one of my greatest reads ever, I think. So easy choice in the end for book of the month. Yeah, that was my February. Let me know what you've been reading in the comments. If you read anything in here, I'd love to know what you thought, and I'll catch you later.